Britain is broken. Can anyone fix it? Why no one wants to live in the UK. This is from a couple days ago. And how Britain became a poor country by this guy. This is from the last 21 hours. Guys, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. And as you notice, this has been going on for a while. It's not anything new. But what is it why did this happen? What does it mean? How does it affect you? I'm not in Britain. Well, it doesn't matter where you are. There are things that have been changing for a while. And if you're not staying on top of it, maybe it's happening to you. Maybe it's going to happen soon enough. It's you to an extent that it does affect your quality of life. And unless you wrap your head around these things, then you will probably not be prepared, which is what I try to do here in my channel. Maybe one of the more clear videos that I came across, checking some of these out, is this one from this woman. We're in a cost of survival crisis. Just 3 minutes. Let's check it out together, and then I'll give you a little bit more of my insight.
I don't go out because I don't have the funds to go out. It's, sitting down and sort of working out what can I do without in order to keep things going. It's your heating, your eating, your showers or food. All right, lovely. Thanks a lot then, we'll speak soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
A single parent.
I like how polite she is, in spite of probably being, going through some serious stuff, struggling, of course, financially, but the emotional burden, and yet she still stays polite. That's always something.
Working part-time, Melanie has always struggled to make ends meet, but it's never been as hard as this.
I've had a really tight budget anyway prior to sort of COVID, I suppose, really. It's been tighter and tighter. So subsequently, something like the cost of living crisis that's happened, or I like to call it the cost of survival, really. It's not a cost of living, it's just getting by. How cringe am I?
Very.
She's lived in this flat with her son for a decade, but the landlord wants it back. Here in Surrey, one of the UK's richest counties, she's unable to find a two-bed for less than £1,600 a month.
I've tried so hard to get myself back into...
That's a serious 1,600. That's for a shitty two-bedroom apartment. That is pretty high, man.
The earning levels that I was in pre-having children, and it's constantly affecting my own self-esteem, my own self-worth, my own confidence. And I think government need to really look at how much does someone need to live. It's not good enough to say, oh, well, we haven't got any housing stock. You're going to have to find the difference. I'm working and trying to...
these people that want to live and afford a roof over their heads, greedy bastards, right? That's usually what you hear from a lot in our community, right? In the survival preparedness is usually a little bit more on the right conservative, and I definitely would affiliate with that. In some aspects, I don't even feel that I'm properly represented by the conservative or right-wing politicians. At times, really, the only thing that sort of makes sense for me is what now is called the extreme far right. And even there, you find things like, wait a minute, you're taking money from who? What is it exactly your agenda? So what the president of El Salvador correctly called the globalist elite, those are the guys that have really taken over, man. And they bullshit people into thinking that, oh, you're voting one side or the other. No, it's all the same thing. They finance both things. They finance the woke agenda, the anti-family agenda, and at the same time they finance lots of the positions from the other side of the spectrum. Just the same thing. As we have this false sense of choice at times, more often than not. And it's only in very rare occasions when you have someone like Bukele that comes along and says, yeah, these damn globalists taking over everything, that's the problem. These people are the ones that have not been elected. these are the people that are ruling over our lives and making these decisions for us. These are the people that manipulate societies at a scale that you cannot possibly comprehend, right? And I know it sounds like a rant, but if you see the complete picture, you know exactly what I mean. And this woman is a good example
myself,
of
but
it.
I can't. There's this sort of invisible barrier.
Melanie's, like so many other households, is at risk of what the Joseph Rowntree Foundation call very deep poverty. Its latest report revealing how many people have to live on incomes far below the average once their housing costs are removed.
That's the kind of thing that gets Venezuela style. So you have different levels of poverty. And at times, and again, it is a lot of education. It's a lot of ignorance going on. Oh, those fat people, how you say they're poor, they're fat. Well, yeah, usually poor people are fat. Usually the more fit, lean, grass-fed, meat eater motherfucker, those guys usually have a better position in life. They can afford to eat better quality food. They have, of course, better education in general. They can chill a lot more, work out, sleep more. All of those things that make for a better quality of life. Now, the guy that is stuffing his face full of junk food, which is usually quite cheap. Junk food is affordable, targeting those that demographic. Usually you will find that, yes, it is a sign of poverty in the Western Hemisphere to see fat people. If you see a lot of fat people, you probably live in a shitty community. That's unfortunately the reality. Oh, we're super wealthy, so see how fat we are and the car I have. No, that is not a sign in 2024. Being fat is not that you're doing well. Rather the opposite. So yeah, it's not and it's only when you reach extreme levels of poverty, when people start getting thin, like in the case of Venezuela, where, poverty on top of poverty, generational and destroyed by some of the more brutal socialist dictatorships that you could think of. And only then people start looking at empty fridges and people really getting hungry. I don't know if that's the case of this woman. She has to still choose between heating, rent, or food, which is what they probably mean by this, next level poverty. But it's happening. It's already...
Households defined as being in relative poverty have less than 60% of the median income. The report found that for a single parent with 2 young children, that's £294 a week.
And yet there's another level of all of this. The idea of the single parent house, right? The idea of the single parent home. How many of those? How much has this been encouraged? The entire idea besides the romantic aspect of, yeah, but for most people, most average looking motherfuckers that will not get their Victoria's Secret model and living in a mansion, you're just looking for someone with a life to share, right? And build a family together, and you get joy from that. That was always a traditional idea of marriage. If you're lucky and you find someone you fall for completely and they're in love with you and you're in love with them and everything is like yeah, great, congratulations, that is fucking awesome, that is great. But let's be real, most people don't have that. Most people are not that lucky. Most people are not that good looking. Most people are not that intelligent. Most people are not that capable of having, the emotional intelligence and luck off, especially these days. You see what's going on out there. It's crazy. And if you combine that with the destruction of those traditional values, with the woke agenda and the man-hating narrative that is constantly being bombarded on the younger generations, it is crazy. You will see a lot more of this. You'll see a lot more single parents, but it's not just about the single parent, because this woman, a few years ago, would have been able to survive just fine. She looks interested enough of getting a job, something that would allow her to live decently enough. Why isn't it possible for her? Because it used to be that the American dream or the entire Western Hemisphere dream was, You have a job, you have a wife stays home, looks after the kids, prepares lunch, and when you come back home from work, you hang your hat, right? Yes, your hat, and you prepare a pipe to smoke, and you sit there, and the wife comes along with a beer. So much wrong with all of that in terms of health, especially the beer and pipe, but you know what I mean. That was a traditional thing. But now you're empowered by, both have to work, because it is only that way in which you can afford to live. We've been stripped away, and we've been lied into thinking that that's being empowered. You being forced to work because there's no other option than both parents working, because if not, you cannot afford a life. That is somehow empowering? Are you fucking kidding me? That is empowering? Or is it really more empowering to have the option of, nope, I can just stay home looking after the kids for as long as I want, and then if I want to go back to work, I can, and if I don't want to go, I don't need to. That was real empowerment, not this crap that we have now. But this is what was promoted for years now, and that's how it ended up.
To live on. For a single person, it's 174. 14 million people are in this bracket, more than 6 million of them, though, in very deep poverty. Now, that's less than 40% of the median income. So for a single parent with 2 young children, that's less than £196 a week to live on.
How the fuck do they live with these? I mean, that's why it's called very deep poverty. And, you know, this is typical. The British are great at this, which is carrying their miseries with dignity. That's something that I've always admired from British society. I went to a British school when I was a kid, right? And the director, the principal of the school was a very dignified old lady from wherever in Britain. Was she from Scotland? I don't know. But you know, the motto of our school was "Manners make the man." You know what you probably saw in the Society of Gentlemen. Anyway, there's a movie like with spies or something, and one of the characters throws that line at some point, like "Manners make the man." And I remember, damn, that's the motto of my school when I was a little kid. It was "Manners make the man," and I always thought, like, no, it doesn't. Just because you have manners doesn't. But, you know, being older now, I understand that I don't think it's all that much. I don't think you're made by the manners that you have, but they're a lot more important than I used to think. I understand now that it helps present a better image of yourself even when you're in a lower point. Like I was mentioning about the women being polite on the phone instead of snapping. And so, yes, there is something to be said about that. But you cannot hide that you still have 6 million people that are on very deep poverty. That is still a reality that you have to acknowledge and deal with. So it's getting to this point where people are having to choose between heating or eating. And this is something that, I mean, from South America, from Argentina, and without having, lived through that myself, fortunately enough, it was close enough that I know what it is like. You see it on the streets. People that, you know what people do when, not talking about very deep poverty, you know what happens when that very deep poverty goes on for a couple more years? You will see people eating out of the garbage, like animals. Yes, out there on the streets that you thought you'd never see it. I've gone through that. I've written about all of that here in Surviving the Economic Collapse. I know how it's like. And as I've said for years now, if you think this will never happen, man, you just haven't lived enough. You just haven't seen how things quickly change. When I was growing up, I never saw any of that either. When I was growing up, you would make more money in a manager position. An executive would make more money in Argentina than in the United States. It was simply just in dollars. In US dollars, you would make more money. It was completely unthinkable that in a country with so much food production, the best middle class in the region, and yes, of course, it was already by the time, it was not as the economic power that is the United States, but the quality of life, the middle class, hell, it was very close, if not just as good. I will tell you just that. And this is something I know because that was a time in which I had recently moved from the United States, and I still have some of those memories of, there were some things like certain toys or certain tech things that were not available, But in general, the difference was really not all that big. And a bit older now, I understand many of the things that I didn't understand as a child, which is it was a lot closer than you would initially think. As a kid, you think of toys, cartoons, cable TV, HBO, right? Oh, fuck, we don't have cable here in fucking Argentina. But you know what you have in Argentina? Enormous extensions of untapped land and resources and people that are not really struggling and doing just fine. That's what we had for a long time. And then all of that went away. So, having seen all of that go away in a country that has no fucking explanation for the level in which it is, I understand that this can happen at any time, anywhere. And in fact, it's already happening in UK, definitely so, no doubt about that. But you know, it's also happening in the United States. And people still have this thing of, it's not the dignified British culture, but it's the American exceptionalism thing of, no, we're not this bad, but fuck yes, you are, and you're not even seeing it in many cases. Some people are doing fine. Some people are doing better than fine. But a lot of guys are struggling very, very hard. Do you have any idea of what the Gini coefficient is in your region? Of course not. You have no fucking clue what I'm talking about, most likely. Well, that's something that impacts if you are this or not. Doesn't matter what the economy on a broader scale, the macro is. It only matters if you have food on it. I mean, what is it to this woman here?
For a single person,
what is it to this woman if the government, if the economy makes another 50, 100 billion or million? It doesn't matter. She's still struggling to put food on the table or keep a roof over her head. That's the 6 million very deep poverty. That's the only thing that matters here. Because at the end of the day, that economy growing 1, 2, 5% from last year, I mean, not the case now because this is shrinking, obviously, but even if it does better, how is that affecting you? Am I seeing some of that doing better, or is all of that going to the people that already were in a very good position? And this is something special that happens in the United States. The idea that, oh, we're the biggest economy, okay, you are, but are you personally the biggest economy of the fucking planet? No, of course not. Okay, how well are you doing on a personal level? I'm doing just fine. You ask 100 people, and a lot of those people will, the majority of the people will tell you, not doing as well anymore, brother. Not doing all that good.
116.
The level of very deep poverty in the UK has been rising. And what that means is that more and more people are moving further and further away from the poverty line. And we find that around 6 million people, on average, would need to double their income just to meet the poverty line. And that should shock us. What we've also seen is that over the last 20 years, over consecutive governments, over 6 different prime ministers, we still haven't seen a sustained fall in poverty in the UK.
The government's...
So the lady explained, it's been 20 years, no matter who is in government, it's all the same. You know, what I've been talking about here for years. We are getting more and more of this, of false sense of choice. No matter who you choose, the people really running things have something else in their mind. The people running things, you can vote one, right or wing, Democrat, Republican, Labor, or it doesn't matter. They still go for the same thing. The people that they work for are, which is not you, it is them. That's why you, as the lady said, 20 years later, all we see is more and more poverty. And it was, of course, accelerated enormously by Brexit. This is no mystery. Anyone trying... Usually it's going to be the ones that are responsible for Brexit, the ones that are going to try to hide it. Oh, it would have happened anyway. No, it would not have happened anyway. It would not have been the same thing. Oh, COVID. No, it's Brexit. Why? Because you lost your biggest fucking business. You were the financial capital of the largest economic union in the planet. You had, within your club of members, you had some of the largest economies in the world. And you would trade freely with that. And you don't get how critical that is. My wife, she likes these... Back when we lived in UK, she bought one of these hand-painted mugs. I don't even know. Apparently, they're kind of like trendy. Anyway, women probably know this. A coffee mug, hand-painted, kind of well-known in UK. She had one of those. When we left, she brought her mug. The mug broke. We go online. I want to buy the fucking mug. Yeah, sure. How much is it? 60 quid? All right, 60 quid for a coffee mug? Yeah, but now you have to add shipping and importation fees. So it's an 80-pound fucking coffee mug. It's kind of too much, man. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this little 80 pound detail shows how millions of people are now in poverty, and it comes down to good old me sitting there on my computer, and just when I was about to click, I mean 60, I'm okay, but when I'm checking out of the 60-pound coffee mug, I see that it's going up to like 80 because of shipping and importation fees. And that second makes a difference for millions of people. That second that I hesitated is going to be millions of people, business owners, guys buying coffee mugs, guys planning on building a company, a million or $100 or billion-dollar business. They hesitate and say, wait a minute, So things have changed. It's not the same thing as it was before, is it? All right, how much more is it that it costs if I buy the mug? How much more is it that it costs if I start a business in this country now? How much more does it cost if I have branches or something here? That doesn't work for me. So what I did was, instead of just clicking and buying the 60 pounds, which was now 80, I asked, hey, this is like $80. Is that okay? She said, what? No, it was I bought it for like 40, right? No, I mean, I don't care. I have a ton of them. No. So the answer is no. The answer is no for the 60 or 80 quid coffee mug. The answer is no for the new business. The answer is no for anyone looking to buy from UK, from the other European countries that used to have free movement and flow back and forth of business and goods and people. The answer is no, 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 no. And that's why this ends up this way. And it was super predictable. What kind of fucking dumbass would not have seen it? Well, people were played. People were told it would not be this bad. Oh, they need our coffee mugs. No, no. You can buy coffee mugs elsewhere. You can buy meat elsewhere. You can buy fish. You can buy everything you can possibly buy from UK, probably cheaper elsewhere. And that's what most people end up doing, at least for most things. Now, something exceptional. Oh, yeah, but what is it really? What exactly is it that, no, there's nothing. And that's why it impacts the economy in this way. The poverty that you see now, this deep, extreme level of poverty that you see now, mostly it's because of Brexit. It's because of going from being the business capital of the entire European Union, meaning all of the countries focused their economy there. Everything went through London without any friction of any kind, and all of a sudden now it cannot. And things have had a massive impact on the economy. Now, again, this is happening all over the world, but definitely, without a doubt, the case of UK is particularly bad, and it was predictably so. It was tremendously
Says it will have spent £104 billion on cost of living measures between 2022 and 25, and said it was breaking down barriers to work. But with so many already in work struggling to get by, there are more immediate barriers in the everyday.
Anyway, there you go, guys. It is a sad reality. I lived in Northern Ireland, as you know, which is part of UK. So I kind of saw it coming in some ways. I mean, personally for us, it was more of a matter of weather and lifestyle, and yes, of course, the fucking sun. Why would we not want that? It was also a little bit of the type of the teenage years for kids. I saw it was like I don't know, a little bit more sadness, or a little bit less joyful kind of life. And yes, of course, when you move next to the beach and with wonderful weather and everyone is super happy and having a great time all the time, yes, of course, that kind of thing is important. But everything has its pros and cons, but keeping all things in mind, we just considered it was better for us and our family elsewhere. And yeah, definitely now the reality, again, personally, it's not something that would have affected me nearly as much as people that don't have other options. But that's maybe something else for people to consider. And I know it's very difficult because these are not people that are used to making that choice. It's not like someone from Argentina that you kind of like, you saw people and you are from your bloodline is moving. You know, for most people in Argentina, it's either Spain or Italy or somewhere else that move there. Even for many of the families that went to my school, or the families that started the school I went to, the private school that I went to as a kid was started by Brits that had moved because of the railway. It was like managerial and people working on the railway companies, trains and stations and all this stuff. Some of the clerks and the managers, they were from UK, and they settle elsewhere. So they have this idea: yes, we just pick our bags and we go make our lives elsewhere. Those people, that DNA is more used to the idea of, we just go, man. We don't hesitate a whole lot, right? But for a lot of people, it's, I just cannot see this. This is not something that my brain can compute. I was born here. I will die here. I'll be buried here next to, and it's something that with this level of poverty, it is very clearly going into a line where you cannot, you're like trying to avoid the Titanic from crashing. You can't. It's already crashing. It's already breaking into the, hitting the iceberg and ripping on the side of the ship and water going in. So it's gonna go down in a pretty hard way for a lot of people. And a lot of people will probably be better off making those bags going elsewhere, especially if you have the option. You have a language, you have an education. I mean, lucky for you, you speak English, which is what most companies in most of the world are looking for. So yeah, even if you don't speak whatever local language it is elsewhere that you go, you still handle and you get by with English. And if you have the skills for, you can start over elsewhere. A lot of people are already doing that. I mean, I actually know of some. It's been a few years now that I've known of people that left because of one thing or another. But anyway, it's not just UK. UK is in a particularly bad spot, especially because of Brexit, without a doubt, even more so than COVID, which most countries have already, gotten back on, at least economically, recover from what COVID did. Maybe not on the other social and political aspects. But everywhere, it's difficult, and we will see more of these complications. Guys, if you want to learn from my experience going through something, kind of like this and even worse, surviving the economic collapse, and for the practical skills, street survival skills, the skills that will keep you safe when things start getting even harder than what you are probably seeing now. See you on our next video, guys.